It was a Wednesday morning, the kind where the sun feels too bright and the coffee tastes like regret after 2 failed brews. I was out by the shed, tinkering with the target racks on the east side of my range, when I heard Ida's shrill, piercing voice that could make a hawk rethink its territory. That voice belonged to Linda Haverford, the self-appointed guardian of our suburban enclave, 2 properties over, where her manicured lawn and tacky garden gnomes stood as a testament to her reign. Her house was close enough to catch the faint echo of my range's active tide, but far enough that she need binoculars to make out anything worth complaining about. That didn't stop her, though. Not one bit. For weeks, Linda had been waging a silent war, slipping passive-aggressive notes into my gate, each one penned in a cursive so sharp it could cut glass. Noise disturbance, one read. Threat to neighborhood peace, said another, tied with a ribbon like it was a gift. But today, she'd upgraded her tactics. I glanced up to see her perched precariously on a flimsy patio chair, phone raised over my 8-foot privacy fence, filming like she was uncovering a government conspiracy. There it is, she bellowed to no one in particular. Illegal weapons depot. Dangerous active tie. Someone call the news. I didn't flinch. I just kept adjusting the target frame, letting her tire herself out. My range wasn't some backyard hobby. It was a certified training facility inspected, fire marshal approved, and listed in the sheriff's database as a hub for law enforcement drills. Cadets practiced urban entry here. SWAT teams ran low-light scenarios. I'd even trained a federal unit whose credentials were so classified they didn't carry business cards. But Linda? She didn't care about permits or public safety. To her, the sharp crack of a rifle was a personal assault on her book club and her precious koi pond. As I loaded practice rounds into a magazine, the low growl of tires on gravel caught my ear. I figured it was the 3 officers scheduled for lateral movement drills. What I didn't expect was Linda's theatrical arm wave, as if she'd summoned a cavalry. A black SUV rolled up, its County Tactical Training DVY Shound sticker barely visible. Linda, still clutching her phone like a war trophy, shouted, "Over here! I've got EVY Denke!" She stepped off her chair, ready to star in her own VY RAL takedown. The door opened, and out stepped Lieutenant Marcus Tate, tactical vest snug, helmet tucked under his arm, and a grin that could disarm a rookie's ego. Linda stormed toward him, righteous fury in every step. "You're just in time," she declared. "I've recorded everything: stockpiled weapons, explosives, tactical shouting." Marcus blinked, like she just accused him of stealing her mail. Then he spotted me. "Jack," he called, striding past her. "You get those new steel targets set up?" Linda froze. "Wait, what?" I strolled over, peeling off my ear protection. "Yeah, they're by the East Post," I said. Marcus clapped my shoulder. "Sweet. Been itching to test the short barrel pattern." Linda's jaw dropped. "You saw him?" she stammered. Marcus gave her a look like she'd asked if water was wet. "He trains my squad. Best private range in the county." The color drained from Linda's face. Her phone wobbled in her hand as she backed away, nearly tripping over her own chair. "You're not here because I called?" she mumbled. Marcus chuckled. "No, ma'am. I've got standing sessions here." Linda muttered something about HOA violations and shuffled back to her yard, her crusade deflated. Marcus watched her go, then turned to me. "She been at this long?" I smirked. "Last week, she claimed the steel plates were stressing her fish." He laughed. "Should I bring the team to practice breaching next door?" I grinned. "Only if you want her calling the FBI." As Marcus geared up, the familiar pop of rifles filled the air, a sound of discipline, not chaos. Linda peeked from behind her roses, glaring. I waved. She didn't wave back. I didn't care. I'd been in this game too long to sweat suburban tantrums. What Linda didn't realize was the hole she was digging. False claims against a state-certified instructor don't just vanish into the ether. They come back with teeth. By the next morning, the drama had spiked. My phone buzzed with missed calls, 3 from the zoning office, 1 from an unknown number. I wasn't fazed. I'd dealt with bureaucratic nonsense before. In my office, I pulled out my Linda file, a binder stuffed with permits, inspection photos, and a sheriff's commendation for community training. If you run a range this close to CIVYization, you need paperwork thicker than a brick. Before I could print duplicates, a white hybrid SUV crept up my drive, its Community Services logo screaming busybody. A lanky guy in his 30s stepped out, clutching a clipboard like a lifeline. "Mr. Carver?" he asked, squinting. "That's me," I said, shaking his hand. "I'm Ethan from zoning. We got a report about weapons discharge, noise, and explosives." I nodded. "Let me guess. Linda Haverford?" He blinked, startled, like I'd read his mind. I waved him toward the range and gave him the tour: acoustic baffles, bullet traps, maintenance logs, officer waivers. By the time I showed him the sheriff's letter, Ethan was nodding like a bobblehead. "This is the tightest operation I've seen," he admitted. "Your permits are bulletproof. Soundproofing's above code. Zoning allows this with your setup." I raised an eyebrow. "Linda mention explosives?" He snorted. "She called it a war zone VYB. Said her walls shook." I laughed. "That's her smoothie blender." Ethan grinned but shifted. "One thing, though. She's got a petition. 6 signatures." I smirked. "Including her husband twice?" He stifled a laugh. "She's persistent." Ethan left with a stack of my documents and a story for his coworkers. But the storm wasn't over. That afternoon, a buddy sent me a link to a neighborhood Facebook group. Linda had posted a video, a choppy, over-edited mess of range sounds, dramatic music, and her own voiceover, recorded on what sounded like a dollar store mic titled, "Danger Next Door, a Community at Risk." It painted me as a rogue arms dealer, complete with slow-motion footage of me carrying a toolbox. She'd filmed from behind a bush, sneezing mid-clip. The comments tore her apart. "Lady, you live in the sticks. That's a legit range. Isn't he the guy training our cops? Go touch grass, Karen." Within hours, her post was buried under downvotes. Linda tried to rally, typing about community morale. But no one cared. She was screaming into the void. The next day, I caught her pacing her property, phone out, narrating like a wannabe anchorman. She looked desperate, grasping for a new angle. What she didn't know was that every lie, every exaggerated claim, was being catalogued. I'd already called my sheriff's contact. My next call was to a lawyer, not for a lawsuit yet, but defamation has a paper trail, and mine was ironclad. This wasn't about winning a spat. It was about protecting the trust that keeps communities safe, the unspoken bond that the guy next door might be the one training the people who'll save you. Linda didn't quit. She set up a folding table in her driveway, dubbing it the Neighborhood Safety and Values Committee. Her audience? 3 friends, a sleeping neighbor, and a yappy dog named Brutus. She ranted about corrupt cops and the armed stranger next door, while viewing blurry photos of me fixing a target with a wrench. She even pitched a local news station, landing a 5-minute Sunday morning slot. Standing by her mailbox, she gestured wildly toward my range, claiming I was terrorizing gentle folk. But lies crumble when the truth shows up with receipts. 2 days later, a precinct friend called, laughing hysterically. The sheriff's office had seen Linda's segment and decided to set the record straight. They proposed a community transparency event at my range. That Saturday, the sheriff, 3 council members, and a news crew rolled in, banners proclaiming public safety in action. Linda paced her fence, filming, until a deputy stopped her cold, asking for ID. She shouted about citizen rights. But this was no HOA picnic, it was county business, and she wasn't in VY Ted. The sheriff, a grizzled man named Roland Hayes, took the mic. He praised my range for cutting crime response times, training officers for real-world threats, and SAVYing lives. Then, his voice sharpened. Some individuals have spread false claims about this facility, filing baseless complaints and defaming those who serve. We know who they are. Further misuse of emergency resources will be investigated as a crime. Linda stood at her fence, phone limp, silenced. The crowd murmured. The cameras caught it all. That evening, a councilwoman lingered, joking that Linda should have complained about her own blender. As the last news van left, I saw Linda on her porch, arms crossed, face blank. Her silence was deafening, a surrender louder than any gunshot. Weeks later, Linda tried one last gambit, a small claims suit alleging auditory trauma and property devaluation. Hurry VY Denke? A list of sleepless nights and screenshots from her failed VY Deo. I walked into court with permits, letters, and HD footage of Linda filming from her roof, yelling about militias, while I coached a rookie. The judge, a no-nonsense woman. System, I apologize, but the response was cut off due to exceeding the character limit. Here's the continuation of the story, keeping it within the 6,000 character limit while maintaining the requested tone, drama, and natural American English. No-nonsense woman barely let Linda finish her tearful monologue about fallen bird feeders and sleepless nights. I laid out my case, zoning maps, certifications, sheriff's letters, and a damning still of Linda perched on her roof, filming my range. When I played a clip of her shouting, "Militia training site!" while I stood with two uniformed officers, the courtroom shifted. The bailiff smirked. The judge didn't hesitate. She dismissed Linda's claim with prejudice, barring her from refiling, and warned that further false accusations could mean fines or contempt. Linda packed her papers, shoulders slumped, and left without a word. 3 days later, a small basket arrived at my gate, local honey and a note. Thank you for your patience. Sorry about the noise. It was from Linda's neighbor, who, I heard, excluded her from the next potluck. The HOA distanced itself, barring Linda from speaking for the neighborhood. Her CIVYC Action Circle fizzled when its lone attendee bailed mid-meeting. Linda became a cautionary tale, not hated, just ignored, the worst fate for someone's CRAVYing attention. She still lived across the fence, glaring occasionally, but the notes, VY Deos, and shouts stopped. She'd run out of fight. Meanwhile, my range thrived. New lighting, steel targets, and a digital scoring system drew bigger crowds. A retired state trooper joined to run drills. Local departments booked monthly sessions, and a small-town mayor pitched a second facility up north. I kept the cameras rolling, not for safety, but for training VYUs. Sometimes, I'd spot Linda walking her dog, head down, silent. She'd fought for quiet and got it, not because I stopped, but because no one listened to her anymore. The noise she loathed was the sound of people training to protect her, a truth she'd never grasp. As I locked the gate one evening, watching cadets run a final drill, I realized justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a quiet figure at a fence, arms folded, with nothing left to say. And that silence roars louder than any bullet.